Hey everyone, Mitch coming in for the Commander's Core studio. Welcome to the show. So, on today's episode, I'm going to be talking about what are, in my opinion, the most powerful Precon commanders from the upcoming Aetherdrift Precons, which are Living Energy and Eternal Might. Some real heavy hitters on this. The deck lists for the Precons have not been revealed, but I'm here to give you all the secrets of what makes these commanders powerful. Let's jump into them. So we're just going to start off with the order in which these were displayed in the preview stream. So we're going to start things off with Temmet, Naktamun's Will. Now, this is a very spicy commander, a 4/4 zombie wizard for 5 mana in Esper. Esper zombies, anyone? Vigilance, Menace. Whenever you attack, draw a card, then discard a card. So yeah, that's nice, but if it stopped there, we wouldn't really care all that much. What we do care about is the zombie goodness with whenever you draw a card, zombies you control get ++1 until end of turn. Now, that is absolutely massive because if you've been sleeping under a rock, maybe you don't know, but zombies are one of the most powerful and most supported tribes in all of Magic, in all of Commander. One of the most popular tribes out there. They have a ton of support, so there's a lot of great zombies out there and a lot of great zombie support cards. And this is a massive game-ending play for you, just built onto the commander. I mean, not just like the attack, draw, discard. That's nice. You know, you get a little +1/+0. That's nice. What matters, though, again, is every single time you draw a card, your zombies are getting ++1. So at the very least, on your turn, though, I mean, with your regular card draw on the turn, as long as your commander is in play, plus your attack trigger draw, you are getting +2/+2. And keep in mind, too, as well, like, although you probably want to attack with your commander because it's got Vigilance and Menace, there are going to be times where it's like, oh, they'll probably block and take it out. You're going to want to be like, you know what? Maybe not. Let's just hold off on that. Although, actually, your commander technically is going to be swinging basically as a 6/6, right? Because you're drawing cards, your commander is a zombie. It's not other zombies getting pumped, too. So, essentially, it's going to be a 6/6 on attack. You can usually survive that with that in Menace. You'll have other ways to get through, potentially. But even if not, just swing with your other zombies. Again, whenever you attack, that is the trigger. So essentially, yeah, you're in the right colors, or at least right color when it comes to blue for the most part, of drawing an absurd amount of cards very, very easily, so you can pump your entire army in absolutely no time. And again, your entire already very supported army, very strong army with a lot of great zombies out there, and some specifically that are absolutely crazy. Like, this is, well, kind of the missing piece, not the missing piece, but the other half of another commander that I'll be bringing up that this will slot in amazingly into the 99 of that deck. But of course, we're not talking about on that episode. We're talking about this as the commander, what cards slot into this deck. We don't know the deck list yet, but I'm going to be giving you a sneak peek of cards that work amazing with it. If those cards aren't already in that deck and you get this Precon, definitely consider these. Okay, jumping into it, a very simple but amazing card for this commander, which is kind of a combat trick for it in a weird way. Brainstorm. Brainstorm, yeah, already sees a good amount of play in Commander. It's a good way to manipulate the top of your library in case you've got some fetch lands, get rid of cards that are dead in your hand and replace them, essentially. Instant speed, blue. Draw 3 cards, put the 2 cards from your hand on top of your library in any order. So the amount of card advantage out of this is basically not negligible, but again, it is like draw 3, you're giving 2 back, and essentially you put this card, essentially you're utilizing it as well. So like you're going up 1 card, but not really. But with this commander, again, it doesn't really matter about the card advantage, it just matters about the total number of cards drawn. So this is a 1 mana, pump your entire team by 3. Kind of like Overrun, but without Trample, essentially, at instant speed. So yeah, being able to just do that out of nowhere, that again can be game ending. Some zombies are going to be getting through, and your opponent's like, my math is right, so I'm fine. And you're like, no, you're not. I am going to pump my team an extra 3 just for a single mana very easily. So yeah, your card advantage in this deck can be absolutely fantastic. Kind of being a pump effect, a game-winning effect, essentially, for you, too. Frantic Search, or Combat Trick, too. Frantic Search, an amazing one as well. Instant speed for 3 mana, draw 2, discard 2, untap with 3 lands. So again, no card advantage out of this, really. This is just straight-up card selection. That being said, it is free card selection, or even actually giving you extra mana, too, if you've got any kind of like a dual land in play or whatnot. But being able to just cast this essentially for free, get your mana back, and pump your team by 2, That is absolutely huge. Speaking of huge, though, I've got to bring up kind of the not ugly side of this deck, but the side of the deck that might annoy some people. Yeah, wheels are really good with this commander, obviously. Windfall, a sorcerer for 3 mana in blue. Each player discards their hand and draws cards equal to the greatest number of cards a player discard this way. Some players out there really don't like wheels. They can be a bit annoying, especially when you chain wheel into wheel into wheel into wheel. It's very hard for players to plan ahead. That being said, your plan is very simple: to get zombies out and draw a ton of cards. So all of a sudden you're just like, oh, okay, cool. I cast this. Someone probably has 7 in their hand maybe. And then all of a sudden my zombies get +7/+7. On top of just the regular card draw on the turn that I already had, on top of the attack trigger draw, that is going to be a total of +9/+9, and yeah, you're going to have a ton of zombies in play, and yeah, they're going to get through, and this can just be I cast 1 spell, and I take out my opponent's kind of a card. Speaking of which, Distant Melody, oh my goodness, an amazing card. Sorcerer for 4 mana in blue. Choose a creature type, draw a card for each permanent you control of that type. Very simple, very effective, very budget friendly. Again, you have zombies. You're going to go super wide with your zombies, and all of a sudden you're going to draw, 10 plus cards with this. Pump your team to oblivion, and your opponents are gone. Endless Ranks of the Dead, an amazing card that used to be a lot more expensive, now a lot more budget friendly. Not quite within my budget, but might be within yours. And as a reminder, if you're interested in these cards, check out that card list link in the description below. That being said, enchant for 4 mana in black. At the beginning of your upkeep, create X 2/2 black zombie creature tokens, where X is half the number of zombies you control, rounded down. So basically, I get more and more and more zombies every single turn. Again, there is a reason why it's called Endless Ranks of the Dead, because it is truly endless. Moving on, Forgotten Creation, a zombie that can help you so much in this deck. A 3/3 zombie that costs 4 mana. It has Skulk, which is completely irrelevant with this commander, really, unless your opponents have like a 20/20 in play. Then yeah, sure, this can get through essentially, but it can't be blocked by creatures with greater power, which is quite nice. It can't get taken out by a bigger creature. I guess it has to be team blocked to get taken out at least, so cool. That being said, with the amount of pump it's going to have with this commander, it doesn't matter. The reason it's in the deck, though, won't be because of the Skulk. It's because of, at the beginning of your upkeep, you may discard all the cards in your hand if you do draw that many cards. So basically, wheel. It is a repeatable free wheel on your upkeep that, again, just pumps your entire team to oblivion. Speaking of which, Graveborn Muse, a card from my childhood back in, I believe this is Legions, a 3/3 zombie spirit for 4 mana in black. At the beginning of your upkeep, you draw X cards, lose X life for X number of zombies you control. Yeah, losing life is not all that big of a deal in a commander when it comes to 1 life per card drawn. Yeah, I'll make that deal any day of the week. And all of a sudden, again, you are just, again, on your upkeep, drawing an absurd amount of cards, filling your hand with amazing things, and all of a sudden saying, oh, my team is absolutely massive. Again, this tiny little, mid-size, I guess, 3/3, essentially, right? That's probably medium-size for a creature, 3, 4, 5 or so. Yeah, it might not be all that threatening in Commander, but all of a sudden you're like, yeah, just an absurd amount of power. Yeah, I'm going to be swinging through and taking you all out. Teferi's Aegis Insight, a great way to take advantage of so much. Thought Reflection as well, but yeah, this is a little bit cheaper when it comes to the mana value. Legendary Gem for 4 mana in blue. You draw a card, except the first one you draw on each of your draw steps, draw 2 cards instead. Doubling up your card draw is going to be so deadly with this commander. At the very least, again, on attack with any of your creatures with your commander in play, you get that trigger. Now you draw 2, you discard 1. You're going up in card advantage, which is nice. And again, yeah, you're making an extra little pump effect too. But of course, doubling up all your card draw. Again, all the other card draw I've already talked about in this episode. Just think about this with a Brainstorm. 1 mana, draw 6, put 2 back on top. Yeah, you're going up a ton of cards with that. On top of it being a basically +6/+6 to your entire team out of nowhere for 1 mana. Okay, here we go. The name of the game, though, Varina Lich Queen. My goodness, am I happy this is budget friendly for this. Just 27 cents for this amazing zombie commander already. Now, kind of like I alluded to at the beginning of this episode, yeah, basically, this brand new commander, this brand new Temmet is amazing in the 99 of a Varina deck. And Varina is amazing in the 99 of a Temmet deck. These are 2 commanders that you can probably swap out, make some changes here and there. Like if you're like, oh yeah, I already have a Varina deck, maybe I'll make some slight changes to make it a Temmet deck. This is the perfect combination with both of them in play, though, and it's so deadly. A 4/4 zombie wizard for 4 mana in Esper. Whenever you attack with 1 or more zombies, draw that many cards. They were made for each other. Then discard that many cards, you gain that much life. Pay 2, exile 2 cards from your graveyard, create a tap 2/2 black zombie creature token. Absolutely made for each other. Again, basically, go wide, make a ton of zombies, and all of a sudden swing, and when your zombie swing, your entire team gets pumped by the number of zombies that you control attacking, essentially, well, +1 thanks to your commander. So that's absolutely absurd. Yeah, great in the 99 of that deck, great in the 99 of this deck. It's absolutely amazing. Knowledge is power, though. Yet another way to basically do the exact same thing, essentially, by doubling up your commander's effect. An enchantment for 5 mana in Azorius. Creatures you control get +X/+X for X the number of cards you've drawn this turn. Yeah, this is pretty crazy again. Essentially, you're just going to be drawing an absurd amount of cards with so many different effects, and now you are doubling that up, which also, again, basically doubles up the amount of pump that your team is getting thanks to your commander. So yeah, getting this in play can be absolutely devastating for your opponents. Grave Titan, yeah, and there's a lot of ways to go wide with this, deck. There's a lot of ways to go wide with zombies. There's so much zombie support out there, kind of makes your head spin. But yeah, Grave Titan's an amazing one, 6/6, Death-Touching Giant for 6 mana. Enters battlefield or attacks, get 2 zombies onto the battlefield. Yeah, there are plenty of ways to get a lot of zombies in play. This is going to be a really hard zombie to deal with. Again, already being a 6/6 with all the pump that you're going to be getting. Also having Death Touch is quite nice. Maybe irrelevant, but nice. But yeah, being able to make just 2 2/2s every single time, which again, at a base level, your commander are basically 4/4, so basically 8 power on ETB or attack, plus a lot more with the other pump effects. That's pretty crazy. Army of the Damned, though, yeah, this already is somewhat of a game-ending card, but definitely with this commander. 8 mana sorcery in black, create 13 tap 2/2 black zombie creature tokens, and if that's not enough, flash it back for another 10 mana. Yeah, 13 zombies in play that are 2/2s is already going to be enough usually to kind of take over a game, but essentially with this in your commander, the game is just over. If you get one swinging with that army, the game is just going to be over. So yeah, overall, Temmet, brand new Temmet, plenty of ways to go wide in zombies, plenty of ways to now go tall in zombies with that massive pump effect. And yeah, Varina, oh my goodness. Varina is going to be so happy with Temmet in the 99, or Temmet's going to be happy with Varina in the 99. It's going to be an amazing combination. A very, very powerful commander for a very supported tribe. Moving on to the backup commander, the secondary commander out of that precon, and that is Hashaton, Scarab's Fist, a 1/3 zombie wizard for 2 mana in Orzhov, but it is an Esper commander as well, as you'll see. Whenever you discard a creature card, you may pay 2 and a blue. If you do, create a tap token that's a copy of that card, except it's a 4/4 black zombie. So of course it works well with Temmet in that, oh yeah, you attack, you draw, you discard, and then you can pay your 3 mana essentially to make that 4/4 zombie version of that card. Now, is it going to be, are you going to build the entire deck just around like that interaction? No. I mean, you're going to have other ways to discard, of course. And of course, having some spicy instant speed ways to discard, maybe even freely, or giving you a benefit for doing so, can be absolutely amazing. And having some very splashy, very spicy plays. I try to combine spicy and splashy, but there you go. Being able to just do these out of nowhere, and again, just paying basically 3 mana for a creature. Now, a 4/4 token version zombie of that creature. That being said, that can actually be used to your benefit by, if you're discarding a creature that has less power than that, of course, and less toughness, cool, you're pumping it a little bit. It might not be the case, but regardless, being able to make a token copy version of something, that plays into certain things like, populate, etc., to get extra copies of that as well, and being able to just do some absolutely absurd things with it. Yeah, this is a commander that you can do some absolutely brutal things when you are set up properly. Again, doesn't matter what the actual creature's mana value is, essentially. No matter what it is, if you are discarding it, you can just pay 3 mana, essentially, and you get a copy of it. And that means you're getting ETBs, you're getting LTBs, you're getting any other triggers, you're getting any other effects from it as well. And yeah, just making a 4/4, you can do a lot of spicy things with that. On top of, well, again, there are certain benefits to having creatures in your graveyard. There's certain benefits to, well, maybe building around that as well and getting them back out in different ways, like, reanimation, which you, of course, have access to as well. But you can do a lot of spicy things with this commander once you're set up properly. Okay, first up, very simple, very effective Putrid Imp. A really good card when you just want to discard cards, essentially. A 1/1 zombie imp for a single black mana. Discard a card from your hand, it gains flying till end of turn. And also if you've got Threshold, which you probably will, you're discarding cards, right? It's going to get +1/+1, it can't block. So, cool, it's a 2/2 that can't block and might have flying sometimes, but what matters, again, is that it is a free discard outlet, which with this commander is basically like a massive cost savings for all of your giant creatures that you're going to use and abuse with it. And of course, I guess if you really want to like discard this with something else and then pay 3 mana, then you've got a 4/4 zombie version of it, which is slightly larger, right? So that's nice too. That being said, of course, there are other discard outlets. One that's not free, but is absolutely incredible with this commander. It can be easily used and abused. Tortured Existence. Just picture this. It's an enchant for a single black mana. Pay a black mana, discard a creature card, return target creature card from your graveyard to your hand. That is exactly what you want to do with this deck. You want to discard creature cards. So you're paying a black mana. You are discarding, say, an amazing giant creature. You are paying 2 and a blue, so 4 mana in total, to then make a copy of that. And while you're doing that, you're also bringing another creature from your graveyard back to your hand. So all of a sudden, you're in this like loop where you're like, okay, get this creature out, 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 get this creature out. I mean, I'm sure there are definitely some combos that you can utilize with that. But at the very least, it's like, oh, I keep making token copies of, say, Gary, like Great Merchant of Asphodel, just to get an absurd amount of value. Or, and we'll talk about some other creatures later, some other massive creatures that you really want to take advantage of. But yeah, of course, we're not done with our discard effects yet. Key to the City can be an amazing one. Tap, discard a card to 1 target creature, can't be blocked this turn. When it becomes untapped, you may pay 2 if you do draw a card. So kind of like a delayed rummaging effect in a way. But yeah, a free discard outlet for us that allows us to get a creature through. And then there are going to be certain creatures that we really want to get through, maybe with some, combat damage triggers or whatnot. So that can be another outlet for us. Grimoire of the Dead, though, this is a huge one for us. A massive game-ending play that usually is a downside at first, but we turn this into a massive upside. Ledger Artifact for 4, pay 1, tap, discard a card, put a study counter on it, tap, remove 3 study counters from it, and sacrifice it. Put all creature cards from all graveyards on the battlefield under control. They're all black zombies of other colors and types. So this is one that's like a mass reanimation effect that is a bit delayed, right? This is like Rise the Dark Realms, but you take a little bit of time to actually get there. That being said, usually it is a downside, right, to discard those cards. You're setting yourself up over time. With this one, it's like, oh no, it's all upside right away. Okay, I'm paying 1 mana, I'm tapping, discarding a card, and I pay my 3 mana to make a token copy of that creature. That is huge. And then, of course, you have discarded those cards, those creatures are in your graveyard, your opponents have creatures in the graveyard too, and then once you can, mass reanimate everything as well. Perhaps the best, though, and my favorite discard outlet of all these, Scourge Familiar. So budget-friendly, just 11 cents for this gem. 3/2 Phyrexian Imp with flying for 5 mana in black. Discard a card, add black. This is massive because, again, not only are you not paying to discard that card like we just talked about on a previous one, you are actually gaining mana back from that. So you literally discard some massive creature card, and all of a sudden, now you just have to pay a single mana and then a blue mana, and then you are there. You're paying 2 mana now to basically make a token copy of that card instead of 3 mana in total. So yeah, this is an amazing way to generate that mana. And of course, obviously, there's maybe some ETB creatures that you might want to use and abuse that draw you a bunch of cards, so you can actually just kind of even negate both of the generic mana value of that ability to say, oh, I'm just paying a blue mana now, essentially, to, well, just make my creatures instead. Now, when it comes to some creatures that you might want to, well, cheat out the cost of and make copies of and do other things with, Massacre Worm is one that does come to mind. An amazing 6/5 Phyrexian Worm for 6 mana in black. Enters the battlefield, creature opponent control, get -2/-2 until end turn, so a great way to potentially wipe the board of your opponent's small to slightly bigger creatures. If you maybe get some extra copies of this or get some other ETBs. Whenever a creature opponent controls dies, the player loses 2 life. So also a game-ending solution for you as well. Yeah, and also, again, when you have these creature token versions of them in play, sometimes it can be worse, right? Again, like, it's a 4/4 zombie versus a 6/5 worm. Technically worse with that. That being said, even though it's a little bit worse with that, it's better in the fact that Song of the World Soul, oh my gosh, Wizards reprint this card. It's one of my favorite cards of Magic of all time. Has this ever been reprinted? Reprint it! Enchantment for 6 mana in white. Whenever you cast a spell, populate. So again, create tokens copy of a creature token you control. By turning creatures into creature tokens, you gain a lot of value from populate, an absurd amount of value. In fact, I built an entire deck around literally just this card and all the other populate effects as well. And just trying to get creature token versions, essentially, of powerful creatures with powerful ETBs, LTBs, etc., etc. So yeah, now let's say you've got that Massacre Worm in play, you're casting some spells. Yeah, you're going to be making a bunch more Massacre Worms, and all of a sudden your opponent's creatures get -2/-2, they all get taken out, and they all lose a ton of life again to per each Massacre Worm you have. Of course, also, Sun Titan, though. Let's talk about some other creatures that are absolutely amazing to get token copies of. A 6/6 Giant with Vigilance for 6 mana in white, enters the battlefield or attacks, you may return target permanent card with converting mana cost 3 less from your grave of the battlefield. being able to basically reanimate something medium-sized to smaller out of your graveyard when you, well, discard this to actually make a token copy of it. That can be huge. Living Primordial, yet another amazing ETB to use and abuse. 5/5 Avatar with flying for 7 mana in blue. Enters the battlefield. For each opponent, you may cast up to one target instant or sorcery card from that player's graveyard, paying its mana cost. If a spell cast away, we put in the graveyard this turn. Eggs on set. Basically, steal an instant or sorcery from each opponent. That is huge. Again, you're only paying, again, let's say you've got a free discard outlet, all right? Not even Scourge Familiar. Let's just say a free discard outlet like Putrid Imp. You discard this, you pay your 3 mana. You are paying 3 mana for a 4/4 flying zombie avatar that also lets you cast 3 things for free. That is an absurd amount of value to be had. And keep in mind, again, this commander lets you get around timing restrictions as well. These creatures don't need flash, because if you have a discard outlet that lets you discard at flash speed, instant speed, cool. You can do it whenever you need, so you can do some combat tricks with it too. Junkwinder, oh my goodness, this is such a brutal card. 5/6 Serpent for 7 mana in total. It's got affinity for tokens, so you can just cast it if you want to. That being said, whenever a token enters the battlefield under control, tap target non-land part opponent controls. Does it untap during the player's controller's next untapped step? This is absurdly effective at tying things down, basically stunning things out of the game. And yeah, you're going to be making a bunch of tokens, so have fun with that. Speaking of tokens, Overseer of the Damned, 5/5 Demon flying for 7 mana in total. Enters the battlefield and may destroy target creature. So this is one where, okay, what you're going to be doing is you can actually utilize, again, your discard outlets and your creatures in your hand as basically removal spells, again, at instant speed. So, yeah, let's say a player plays a very scary creature and you're like, I don't like that. All right, let's discard this with, say, Putrid Imp, pay my 3 mana. Basically, I just took out your creature, while also now, too, whenever a non-token creature opponent controls dies, make a tap 2/2 black zombie creature token. So, being able to just essentially be like, oh, you know what? I'm just going to keep growing my army throughout the game when your creatures get taken out and take them up myself. That's quite fun for me. Runescar Demon, very quickly. A 6/6 flying demon. That's also going to be a zombie when it's a token version of it. For 7 mana in total. When this creature enters, search life for a card. Put in your hand, then shuffle. Very, very simple. Very, very effective. Basically, just tutor for you. That is now 43 cents after its reprint. That is huge. And again, if you've got ways to use and abuse ETBs, I mean, you're going to be able to go find one. All of a sudden, you're like, oh, okay, cool. Yeah, I'll go get Song of the World. So with this, play that. And then every single time I cast a spell, I am tutoring. Yes, please. Sepulchral Primordial, yet another great ETB to use and abuse. 5/4 Avatar with Intimidate. So it just gets slightly smaller with that token version of it for 7 mana. Enters the battlefield. For each opponent, you may put to one target creature card from that player's graveyard on the battlefield under your control. So again, this is basically a 3 mana, again with a free discard, a 3 mana 4/4 intimidating zombie avatar that also reanimates 3 creatures for you. What's not to love about that? Finally, though, Moonshaker Cavalry, a lot of other finishers for you. Already kind of mentioned like Gary and the things you can do with that, but this one, if you want to go combat, sure. 6/6 Flying Spirit Knight for 8 mana in total, but again, you can save a lot on that just by discarding it and paying 3. Enters the battlefield, creature control gain flying, get +X/+X to up X number of creatures you control. Yeah, you're going to have a lot of creatures, you're going to have a lot of pump to your team, and you're going to have flying to get them through. So overall, again, there are some absurdly amazing things you can do with this commander, especially Scourge Familiar. I love Scourge Familiar, and any commander that can really utilize it the most, I love them, absolutely. But yes, Hashaton Scarab's Fist is definitely a contender, definitely a really cool commander, and one that can do some crazy things. Moving on, we've got Saheeli, Radiant Creator, from the other precon, the Faith's Commander, a 4/4 Human Artificer for 4 mana in Teamer, the Living Energy Commander. Whenever you cast an Artificer or Artifact spell, you get an energy counter. At the beginning of combat on your turn, you may pay energy. When you do, create a token that's a copy of target permanent you control, except it's a 5/5 Artifact creature to other types and has haste. Sacrifice to begin next end step. Now, there are ways around that. Let's just say that right now. There are ways around that, and of course, there are ways, like I already mentioned, to actually make another copy of that, like, say, Populate. So yeah, there are ways to say, you know what, that token might not be so temporary. But yeah, you can build up an absurd amount of energy with this commander. Just an absolute ton of energy, because when it comes to all the different card types in Magic, the one out of all of them that, in my opinion, is the most easily used and abused is Artificer. Just kidding, it's Artifact. Artifacts are the most abusable cards in Magic because typically artifacts, well, have a generic mana value, and there are plenty of ways to reduce that cost down so you can cast them essentially for free, and you're also in a great color with blue to be able to use and abuse effects that maybe can bounce a lot of things. So you can replay those again, and then again, and then again, and then again, and all of a sudden you built up an absurd amount of energy counters, which you can also utilize proliferate effects, which you've got a lot of great ones in these colors as well, to build up even more storage of counters, essentially. So yeah, you're easily going to have that amount of 3 to pay every single one of your combats, which is lovely. But also, of course, utilize in other ways too, because again, your opponents really can't do anything about your energy storage. So have fun just building that up throughout the game. There are plenty of different ways to build this up. There are plenty of different ways to take advantage of, again, creating a token copy of a permanent. That is pretty crazy. It's a 5/5. It's going to go away, but will it actually go away? I'm not so sure about that. Because one of the first cards that came to my mind to utilize with this commander, and I would love if they put it in the precon, but I doubt that they will, Sundial of the Infinite. Wizards reprinted. Artifact for 2, pay 1 tap, and the turn, activate this ability only during your turn. You exile spells and abilities from the stack, discard down your max hand size, damage wears off, and this turn until end of turn effects end. Essentially, you say, hey, it's on the stack that I gotta sacrifice, that token version of the thing that I made. I don't want to do that. I don't want to do that at all, so I won't. I'm just gonna end the turn, and it's done now instead. So you get to keep those 5/5 tokens that are copies of permanents that you control instead. And again, with some massive things we'll talk about here in a little bit. There are some things that you actually want to sacrifice, and they actually benefit from sacrificing when you're making token copies of them, but also other ones you're like, let's just keep that around. Next up, let's talk about, again, some artificers that are amazing with this, that are also artifacts too, so you still get the energy regardless. A 2/2 Goblin Artificer for, well, just 2 mana. Is it with flying? Artifact spells you cast cost 1 to cast. And I talked about, hey, how reducing the cost of artifacts is broken in many ways. And you've got plenty of ways to do that with this simple one. That, of course, is an artifact and artificer, still just getting you 1 energy, but that's nice. Ethereum Sculptor, you get another version of this, essentially, the OG version of this one. A 1/2 Vedalken Artificer for 2 mana in blue. Artifact spells you cast cost 1 to cast. Again, there's so many ways to reduce that cost that you're going to be casting spells basically for free. And then you're going to have ways to bounce them back to your hand, to replay them, to bounce them back to your hand, to replay them, do some crazy things. Mirror Retriever, again, speaking of replaying things, a 1/1 mirror for just 2 mana. Or again, free with enough, reduction effects in play. Well, whenever it is put in graveyard from play, return another target artifact card from your graveyard to your hand. So essentially, this gets taken out. That's a good thing. Get something else back. Maybe you have a way to sacrifice it. I mean, yeah, maybe make a copy of this with your commander might not be the best thing, but if you need to get something else out of your graveyard, sacrificing it is pretty good. Next up, though, Tyrannic Resonator. Again, your commander has a triggered ability. So essentially, again, when you go to combat, when that does trigger, you know what? I've got extra energy lying around. Let's copy that. Pay 2 tap, copy target, triggered ability you control. You may choose targets for the copy. So you can actually copy now 2 things instead of just 1. Utilize that energy in a great way and copy those down. Flux Channeler, absolutely crazy in this deck. A 2/2 Human Wizard for 3 mana in blue. Whenever you cast a non-creature spell, proliferate. This can basically double up your commander's trigger when it's like, oh, okay, cool. I play an artifact. A non-creature artifact, let's just say that. A non-creature artifact, I play that, and all of a sudden, I get an energy, but also I get an energy from the cast as well, because I'm going to take those counters on whatever they are, players, permanents, whatever they are that I want to get extra, I get an extra energy counter. Forensic Gadgeteer, a 2/3 Vedalken Artificer Detective for 3 mana in blue. Whenever you cast an artifact spell, investigate. So, again, yet another way to make even more artifacts. There's plenty of ways to take advantage of making a lot of them all the time by casting artifact spells, which you're going to be doing a lot throughout the game. On top of the fact that, again, consider that this is an artificer, so you get an energy with it. On top of that, activate abilities of artifacts you control cost 1 less to activate. This effect can reduce the amount of mana to less than 1. So yeah, again, your clues now just cost 1 to sacrifice to draw, which is a lot more value-centric. Foundry Inspector, yet another example of just, again, another way to reduce your artifacts down by 1. Rebuild, a very simple, very effective way to bounce every single artifact back to the owner's hands for just 3 mana. Again, some of your opponents might be dependent upon some artifacts like their mana rocks, essentially. You're not going to be. You're in green. That being said, I mean, you might lean into a little bit. That being said, you are willing to bounce things back to your hand because you've got some cost reducers in play, or at least you can replay them, so you can play them out again all for free, essentially, and just make an absurd amount of energy. Or if you don't need it, it's like Loy for 2. Psy Master Thopterus, another amazing artificer for us. A 1/4 that costs 3 mana in blue. Whenever you're casting that artifact spell, you make a 1/1 Thopter with flying, and you can pay 2 mana, essentially sacrifice 2 artifacts and draw a card. So actually, even on the way out, again, you have to sacrifice, again, if you don't have Sundial of the Infinite, those artifact tokens that you're making. That being said, hey, that's okay. I'll just actually sacrifice that and maybe something else and draw a card. And of course, you can utilize those Thopters, well, for combat and also in a lot of other ways. Scrap Trawler is another great card for us, basically an even bigger Mirror Retriever, a 3/2 construct for 3 mana. Whenever another artifact you control is from a grave from the battlefield, return to your hand target artifact card to your hand with lesser mana value. Keep in mind, those tokens, well, again, are actually going to be, again, artifact creature tokens that do get to keep the mana value, essentially, of whatever they copied. So, let's say you copy something that costs 6, all of a sudden you're bringing something else back out of your graveyard. Yeah, that is absolutely huge. I mean, that costs 5 or less is what I should say. Sure, I'll just say it because I need to say it. Obviously, one of the most famous artificers ever is Urza. So yeah, that is an artificer if you forgot about it. It's an absurdly broken commander, absurdly broken card. And yes, it's good with this. It's $10 or so, but it's very good with this commander. A 1/4 that costs 4 mana. It does basically everything in the world. Enters the battlefield, make a 0/0 cost construct artifact creature token. With this creature gets +1 for each artifact you control. So again, go wide with artifacts and make that huge. Tap an untapped artifact you control, add blue. That's where it is right there. That is the biggest part of the card. Basically, all of your artifacts are now mana rocks. I can tap right away. Pay 5, shuffle your library, exile a top card until after you may play a card paying its mana cost. Just a great mana dump for you. Now, when it comes to actually some cards that you might want to consider copying, I mean, a weird one, but a crazy one, but an amazing one, something like Fiery Emancipation or City on Fire. Again, a damage tripler like this is absurd already, and you make it even more absurd. It's in Chimp for 6 mana in total. If a source you control will deal damage to a permanent player, it deals triple that damage to that permanent player instead. Okay, math people out there, help me out, but let's make another copy of this actually again with our commander. Very simple, very effective. It's a 5/5. How much damage is that doing? Well, normally that would be, what, 15 damage? Well, all of a sudden, if I make a token copy of it, and I have 2 of these effects, and now it's going to be tripled and tripled again, that would be, what, 45 damage just from that 5/5 that I made? A one-shot KO on anyone? And of course, any of my other creatures are basically, you know, times that same amount as well. Again, tripled again. So, yeah, that is pretty crazy that you are just going to be able to hit absurdly hard when you have these things. I mean, in a similar way, Nyx Bloom Ancient, okay? This is something that, yeah, is already game-ending in of itself. It's a $31 card, my goodness. 5/5 Elemental Trample for, again, 7 mana. If you tap a permanent for mana, it produces 3 times as much of that mana instead. Yeah, making everything tap for 3 times as much is absurd. You make a token copy version of this, and all of a sudden you're like, oh, tapping for 3 and then times 3. Have fun with that. Have fun with all your lands tapping for basically the amount of mana that your opponents just have in general. So just one of your lands equals all of their mana. Next up, Moldgraph Monstrosity, an 8/8 insect with trample for 7 mana in total. Just 16 cents for this gem. When it dies, exile it, return 2 target creature cards at random from your grave to the battlefield. Here's the thing. You're making a token version of this. You don't care about it, and all of a sudden, it is dying, it is exiling, and all of a sudden, you are bringing things back out of your graveyard. Lovely. Protean Hulk. Yeah, something you actually want to die. Used to be banned. 6/6 Beast for 7 mana in green. When it dies, search life for any number of creature cards with total mana value 6 or less, put them directly on the battlefield, then shuffle. Again, you are making a token copy version of this. Nice. Awesome. It dies. You want that to happen. You go tutor up those great creatures with total mana value 6 or less. Next up, Phyrexian Triniform, a 9/9. When it dies, make 3/3. All right, so 3/3. There we go. Phyrexian Golem artifact creature tokens. You can also get out of your graveyard with Encore, which is lovely. But yeah, you just keep getting more and more copies of this essentially with your commander, and then they keep dying, and that's a good thing for you. Finally, Metalwork Colossus, a great thing to copy. Also just a great thing to get into play for you, and a great thing to keep getting things back. A construct for 11 mana. Costs excess to cast for the total mana value of non-creature artifacts you control. Sacrifice 2 artifacts, return it back from your graveyard to your hand. A real heavy hitter for you. Something that also can be a sacrifice outlet for you as well, with some of those things that actually want to get taken out. And something that, again, when you are bouncing artifacts back to your hand again and again and again, something you can keep replaying essentially for free. Yeah, overall, a lot of really spicy things that you can do with this brand new commander. I mean, very simple, very effective when it comes to certain things, but also like, hey, Sundial the Infinite, let's just keep things in play. Why don't we? So yeah, a very effective commander. Okay, so the final commander that we've got from Living Energy, the backup commander, we've got Nalaar, Chief Mechanic, a 2/4 human artificer for 3 mana in Teamer. Whenever one or more artifact creatures you control deal combat damage to a player, you get 2 energy counters. So, limited to 1 per player, again, 1 trigger per player, kind of, we'll talk about here in a little bit, but essentially, at the most, we are getting, just in a normal circumstance, if we get through with 1 or more creatures on each player, 6 energy, which is a ton to get in combat. On top of that, at the beginning of your end step, you may pay 1 or more energy. If you do, create an XX cost vehicle artifact creature token. Sorry, I said that. Artifact creature token. Incorrect, just artifact token. Yeah, but it can become a creature named Nalaar Aetherjet with flying and crew 2, where X is the amount of energy spent this way. So basically, and again, keep in mind, these are not legendary. We can make extra copies of them. We can keep making bigger and bigger and bigger, well, vehicles that can hit for a ton based on our energy. We've got plenty of ways to get a lot of energy, just even outside of our commander, of course. But yeah, there's some ways to turn that 6 into quite a bit more. So this is the type of commander that I like to call like the flying men type strategy. You want a lot of low to the ground evasive creatures that can get through on your opponents. Again, if you can get 1 on each opponent, that is already golden for you, because that is 6 energy per combat, which is amazing. And we can turn that even more. So yeah, a Loyal Apprentice, something like this can be absolutely incredible for you. A 2/1 Human Artificer with haste for 2 mana. At the beginning of combat on your turn, if you control your commander, you get a 1/1 Thopter with flying. So again, evasive and low to the ground. And actually just this, having haste can be quite nice to get through right away potentially. That being said, yeah, make a bunch of evasive Thopters throughout the game. Do some incredible things. Next up, Liberator, Urza, Battle Thopter, a 1/2 Thopter, flash and flying for 3 mana. You may cast color spells and artifact spells with that flash. So basically, Vidalcan Ori for your artifacts, which can be huge. On top of that, whenever you cast a spell, the amount of mana spent to cast is greater than Liberator's power. Get a counter on it. So this can grow throughout the game, but again, it's got flying, it's evasive, it's low to the ground, and it gives you some utility with your other things as well. That can be huge. Next up, though, Determine Iteration. I love this card. Wizards, reprint it. Enchant for 2 mana in red. At the beginning of combat on your turn, populate. The token created this way gains haste. Sacrifice at the beginning of the next end step. So this is one that you can take advantage of those Nalaar Aetherjets that you're making. It's got to be a creature when you get to combat, but yeah, just crew it before then. And all of a sudden you can make a secondary one, which again, you can make something that can hit really hard, and this can really help you do that. So let's you all just yet another way to utilize populate and to take advantage of, again, when your Aetherjets are actually creatures. Yeah, utilize the populate effects and make extra copies of them. 2 in a green, exile target creature card from a graveyard, then populate. So some graveyard hate there too, but yeah, basically, again, at a certain point, if you've got like a 10/10 Aetherjet and you're like, yeah, just keep populating for 3 mana, that is an absurd amount of value. Next up, Efficient Construction. Again, low to the ground evasive is the name of the game. If you're building around a lot of artifacts, you can really be helped out with this. Enchant for 4 mana in blue. Whenever you cast an artifact spell, create a 1/1 colorless Thopter artifact creature token with flying, which can be absolutely huge for you. Joyra's Familiar, a 2/2 flying bird for 4 mana. Historic spells you cast cost 1 less to cast. So yeah, again, reducing that down, reducing the cost of your artifact creatures down, your artifact spells down in general. That can be absolutely huge for you. On top of this, having evasion as well. Here's the thing, Wizards, reprint all the extra combat effects, please, please. Ever since Ishin was printed, they all got so expensive. That being said, yeah, extra combats are going to be good for you with this deck. Sorcerer for 4 mana in red. Untap all creatures that attack this turn. After this main phase, there's a combat phase, while there's a main phase. Basically, in layman's terms, you get an extra combat, essentially. And again, every single one of your combats, you're going to be like, oh, okay, I get extra, well, whatever triggers I have in combat typically, but of course, yeah, whenever I need combat damage to a player, so if I keep getting my creatures through, that can be a lot of extra value. Again, at the very least, that is, okay, I get 1 creature through on each opponent, that's 6 energy the first time, cast extra combat spell, 6 energy again. On top of all the damage that you are doing too. Thopter Spy Network. Enchantment for 4 mana though. At the beginning of your upkeep, you control an artifact, create a 1/1 colorless Thopter artifact creature token with flying. Whenever one of our artifact creatures you control deal combination to a player, draw a card. So yeah, now on top of, again, getting your energy when you're hitting players, you're also drawing cards. Again, 1 per player, that can still be a ton throughout the game, and we've got ways to use and abuse that as well. On top of this, just being a great token generator for us with some evasive creatures. Lightning Runner, oh my goodness. Here we go. 2/2 double strike haste human warrior for 5 mana. This card was made for this commander. The commander was made for the card, I guess, because this card's a lot older than it. Whenever it attacks you, get 2 energy. Then you may pay 8 energy. If you pay, untap all creatures you control after this combat phase. There's a combat phase. Here's the thing. Basically, if you already have that, 6 energy from a previous turn, you get infinite combats, essentially, right? Because you are just continuously generating, again, 8 energy per combat if you're getting through on each opponent each time. So again, you swing, you get your 2 energy from this attack, you also get your 6 energy from hitting opponents. Cool, awesome. Again, you need the 8 energy the first time, right? You need actually 6 energy the first time, essentially. But after that, you are good to go. Every single one of these combats is getting infinite Combat swinging through, again, you need a way to get this through. It isn't, you know, evasive on its own, but you maybe have some ways to do that. That being said, yeah, you've got ways to essentially win from there. Speaking of extra things, extra turns, Gonti's Aether Heart, again, a very easy way to get an extra turn with this one. Whenever another artifact enters the battlefield control, you get 2 energy, so you can just keep this around for a while until you actually need that extra turn, because that's going to make you an absurd amount of energy. Top of that, pay 8 energy, which is nothing to this deck. Exile takes no turn for this one. All right, one of the cards that came to mind first when I saw this commander, though, Rage Reflection. Double Strike is huge when it comes to combat damage triggers. Enchantment for 6 mana in red, creature control of Double Strike. Yeah, that is massive. Being able to say, oh, okay, my little flying men or whatever you call the evasive creatures, like 1 per opponent. I hit each of them. Cool. I got my 6 energy. But also, because I have Double Strike, it hits again, meaning that I get that trigger again, 1 per each player. So I'm getting 12 energy on that turn instead of 6, which is already a ton. But of course, on top of that, again, if I had an extra combat, then that is 24 energy in the turn. Have fun, opponents! Next up, Sharding Sphinx. A 4/4 Sphinx for 6 mana in blue, flying. Whenever an artifact creature you control deals combat to a player, you create a 1/1 Thopter with flying. Yeah, you are going to be going so wide your opponent's heads will spin, which is absolutely amazing, but yeah, this is it. It's just absolutely incredible creature that can just be a game ender for you, and a way to make an absurd amount of creatures throughout the game. And of course, very simply, very effectively, cards like Thought Monitor. Don't forget about this little guy. 2/2 Construct, which is now budget friendly, 45 cents, for 7 mana in total, but you're never going to pay that. Affinity for artifacts, again, flying, and then also enters battlefield, draw 2 cards. Usually it's a 1 mana, draw 2 flyer that, of course, kind of prove, you know, it's really weird kind of having like a construct. I guess not really, it's like autopilot, right? You're having a vehicle pilot a vehicle in a way, like a robot piloting a vehicle. But yeah, being able to make a ton of vehicles with this commander, being able to make them bigger and bigger and bigger, and then also being able to take advantage of all these triggers, it can be a lot of fun. Okay, so after all of this evaluation, where are we at when it comes to my perceived power of these commanders? Again, I don't know what cards are in the precons, but it's talking about, in general, what is the power level of each of these commanders in comparison to just each other? Where will they end up, depending on how you build the deck? And yeah, the most powerful version of that deck? Well, actually, ironically, I do think, and maybe I'm biased based on the way I went through this, but I actually do think that the order is, here we go. Temmet, Naktamun's Will at number 1. Number 2, Hashaton, Scarab's Fist. Number 3, Saheeli, Radiant Creator. And number 4, sorry, Nalaar, but Nalaar, Chief Mechanic. Ironically, the order that I went through things on, let's start our way backwards and work our way forwards, though. This is a good commander. It is a very solid commander. It takes a lot to build it up, though. You got to commit to the board. You got to commit to the board hard. You got to get your creatures through. Yes, once you get things like Rage Reflection things in play, you can do a lot of amazing things. Once you get those vehicles out, you can do some pretty crazy things because, again, vehicles are very good at dodging a lot of board wipes, which is nice. But yeah, it does take a lot of build-up. Speaking of build-up, too, Saheeli does require build-up as well. You can do it a bit quicker than I would say Nalaar, though. Being able to just get an absurd amount of energy very quickly. Again, artifacts can be very easily used and abused. So yeah, cast them, recast them, get triggers. Lovely. Being able to get extra, token copies of things. That's lovely. Once you get some big things in play, you actually want to sacrifice, or some things that you can maybe keep in play. It takes some setup to get there, but once you get there, my goodness. Hashaton, Scarab's Fist can be one that can just go crazy very quickly. It can be a little dependent, again, on having those great discard outlets, but again, you've got tutors where you can get those things. You can get ways to tutor up some creatures as well that you actually want to discard. Again, the populate effects can be great with it as well. It's a very effective commander, but I do think just overwhelming zombie support is pretty crazy. Temmet just has a base level that is above all the other ones because just support for zombies is above and beyond nearly anything else, essentially, when it comes to tribal decks out there. And this is a game-ending effect on the commander, which is super easy to build around because you already want to put card advantage in your deck. So just having that in your deck, again, a Brainstorm can be a game-ending play for you. Just get a bunch of zombies out, cast a Brainstorm, and you probably win. So yeah, it's a commander that can just really take over a game. Again, if you're using wheels, even more so, my goodness. But yeah, that's my order at the end of the day. I'd love to hear your opinion on my order and what your order for these is as well. And with that, this episode is coming to a close, so it's my turn to hear from you. In the comments below, let me know your thoughts are on this episode. And of course, as always, thanks again, and have a good one. This show and episodes like this one are possible thanks to viewers like you. If you're looking for an easy way to help support this show, make sure that you like, share, and subscribe. Also, hit that bell notification icon so you don't miss any new episodes. You can also go check out our playmats and other merchandise at thecommandersquarters.com. Another easy way to support this show is with our TCG player affiliate links. So whether you're buying a deck or individual cards, you can use this general link right here or one in the description. And the final way that you can support this show is by supporting us directly by becoming a patron. There are many benefits to being a patron, and I truly couldn't do this without all of their support.